Update 6.0 is out now, and there is a lot going on this month. In this video, we'll be covering the new refines, and this is another solid batch, so have that divine do at the ready. You can get shiny new upgrades for Libra, Loki, Summer Young Tiki, Nailah, and Walhart. Starting with Nailah, we also have our first beast refines, and it already brings some crazy implications for the future. She is also the first Book 3 unit to get a refine, besides the CYO3 winners. First up, let's talk about Libra, a 3 to 4 star Axe infantry unit. You will receive a brand new weapon called the Inviolable Axe. It has 16 might, and if Libra initiates combat or is within 2 spaces of an ally, he inflicts -4 attack, speed, and defense on the foe, and he deals +7 damage on hit. Very simple weapon, and Libra is one of those Axe infantry units with pretty balanced stats. He can make use of all those debuffs, and extra damage never hurts anyone. For the refined portion, at the start of combat, if Libra has 125% HP, he inflicts -4 attack, speed, and defense on the foe again, and restores 7 HP after combat, plus he heals any allies within 2 spaces. So in total, Inviolable Axe inflicts -8 to attack, speed, and defense on the foe, which basically translates to +8 total stats for Libra. On top of this, he deals another 7 damage each attack, and he gets healing after combat, which can also heal nearby teammates. This is not a very complicated weapon, but it's a solid tool for a journalist unit like Libra. You will have a lot of build freedom, which is great for +10 projects. In general, Libra gets a lot of nice tools for fun distant counter builds. He can fight physical or magical damage foes, and he gets some decent speed as well. He needs to be near teammates for the enemy phase, so don't stray too far, and you can stack Mystic Boost with the Refine for 13 HP healing after combat. As you've seen from another healing monster, this can be very annoying for sustained builds if the enemies can't burst Libra down. To go with DC, you got so many different tools such as low attack and speed or defense, no follow-up, no C disrupt, dodge skills, or even good old quicker pulse. Libra is not the fastest unit ever, but an extra 8 speed and a speed boot can patch that up a little bit. If you go the more traditional defense and stacking route, then we have a lot of nice seals like forms, bonds, or stances. For those interested in speed builds, Libra could be quite fun with dodge skills like Spurn. He has built-in sustain for longer battles, which is where damage reduction can really excel, and you can run stat boosting A skills like attack and speed Unity or Solo if you want. Push 4 can be another option since Libra will cancel out the recoil damage with his healing. Regarding additional skills, you could go for a melee tank route. Tier 3 dual stances to get guard would be just fine, and Libra can run joint drives to buff himself and the team. If you want to out-sustain the enemy, Fatal Smoke can be fun, and Attack Smoke would be great for mobs since it will stack with his weapon. If you want extra special cooldown, we have Steady Breath as a Sacred Seal, but Libra can also run Times Pulse, Special Spiral, or Wrath. Extra cooldown reduction would be nice to complement his all-around weapon and stat spread. Now, despite looking like the Bolt Axe from Awakening, Inviolable Axe doesn't have anything to do with magic damage. If you want, you could take Sorcery Blade for the full immersion or run an Infantry Hexblade Mage. Overall, Libra is one of those infantry axe units that can be a nice merge project due to just how flexible his stat spread is. Inviolable Axe and the Refine complement that general idea, and he has a lot of solid abilities while being very easy to use. Nothing too crazy, but solid for a 3 to 4 star unit. Next we have Loki, an infantry healer who got some changes for her Thokk staff. Seems like Thor's debut has angered Loki because she got some crazy upgrades. First off, Thokk is a 14 might staff with Wrathful Staff built in. At the start of the turn, inflict -7 res and gravity on ranged foes with less HP than Loki in cardinal directions. Basically if they are in line with Loki on the grid. Additionally, at the start of the turn, inflict -7 attack and the stall status on melee foes with less HP than Loki in cardinal directions. So Thokk has kept its original effect of long range gravity on ranged foes. If Loki wins an HP check, it got easier to proc and also applies a res debuff on top. Brand new to this weapon is it now affects melee foes as well, but they get attack debuffs and the stall ploy effect, which counters extra movement statuses by only letting the foe move 1 space. If you do not like Legendary Sigurd, Loki will be another stall ploy answer to some of his setups. Now, for the Refine, at the start of the turn, inflict a guard on foes on the enemy team with the lowest speed stat and also spread to any foes within 1 space of that. At start of combat, if Loki has 125% HP, she herself gets +4 attack and speed during combat. Alrighty, so Loki's just going crazy with debuffs and is going to slap the slowest enemy with the guard status. Important to note that this will always hit someone and it has no HP check. Generally speaking, this is going to hit a tank like an arm unit or maybe someone slow like Thor. Coincidentally, Thor gives herself extra special cooldown, so Loki kinda counters that. Another unit Loki can affect is Fallen Guard. She can hit her with Stall to mess with Armored Stride, and Guard prevents 80 from spamming bonfires immediately. If you can win those HP checks, Loki could be a very nice unit to have around for things like Aether Raids. Luckily, she already has Colorless Dual Inventory 3, but you can upgrade to the tier 4 version for extra stats. I didn't touch on it much, but Loki actually has decent attack and speed for a healer, and the extra +4 just helps her own damage a bit. She can definitely be a solid backup Colorless Mage with Wrathwind Dazzling Staff and seals like Blade Session if you aren't really already using it. Now, besides stack attack and speed, Loki is mainly looking to mass debuff the foe with annoying status effects. Gravity, Guard, and Stall Ploy can really mess with certain units like we discussed, and Loki also inflicts stat debuffs now. She is going to be a neat support unit for things like since things like Stall Ploy are still super rare. If you don't want to run Dazzling Staff, Loki has some nice support options for the B slot. She could add Panic to her repertoire with Sudden Panic, or you could go with Panic Ploy. And then an interesting option is Even or Odd Pulse Time. Because Loki can already Stall Ploy Legendary Secret, you could further neutralize him by messing with his Quicken Pulse. This can apply to other pre-charge specials as well for more flexibility, or act as an insurance plan if you cannot line up with Sigurd. Of course, Loki needs to win HP checks, so I do think she's going to want to run at least 1 HP increase in skill. For another support skill, Loki can run Odd or Even Recovery. These are very nice healer skills which provide additional healing and cleanse the team of debuffs. It's a great C skill if you need to stop status effects. Overall, Loki got her refined at a pretty funny time. She does kind of target Thor a bit, and she can help fight against other annoying units like Legendary Sigurd or Fallen Guard. Generally speaking, I think her guard effect from the refine is really strong. So many deadly slow units like army units have so much special charging, and guard can mess up their game plans. I think Loki is definitely a healer to hold on to if you have a random copy lying around. Our third refine is our seasonal one, and it's going to go to Summer Young Tiki this month. She's a flying red dragon with a pretty nice set of stats, decent speed, and mixed bulk. Tiki Summer's Breath got a new base effect as well. It's still effective against dragons and grants a flat +3 defense. If the foe initiates combat or if the foe is 175% HP, Tiki now gets +4 at all stats, and special cooldown charge +1 per attack during combat. Summer's Breath keeps its original effect of steady breath, but now you can activate it on the player phase and gives Tiki more general stats. Tiki can also use her OK speed to make some player phase moves. For the refine, if Tiki is within 3 spaces of an ally, she gains another +4 at all stats and deals damage equal to X% of the foe's res stat when special triggers. X is going to equal to Tiki's max special cooldown value times 10, and you add +20 afterwards. So while it may look slightly different, this is the exact same damage ability as Brave Erica's Moonlight Bangle. That should give you an idea of how deadly this ability can be. If Tiki has a 3 cooldown Luna, you do 3 times 10 for 30, +20 to that to get to 50% of the foe's res stat as true damage, and that is essentially another Luna Proca damage. Together, you basically would reduce the foe's res stat by 100% because the damage you deal cancels it out. After that, Tiki will then deal her full attack stat in actual damage to the enemy. This ability is really scary since Tiki already has steady breath cooldown reduction, and she can use it on either phase now. If she runs Moonbow or Glimmer, she can tank 1 hit, then fire back with her special, and then 40% of the foe's res stat. Add +8 to all stats on top of this, and Summer Tiki gets some solid upgrades. This Tiki stats makes me think of another flying dragon who got a refine this year. In fact, I think she can copy Legendary Grima's DC plus Dragon Wall setup. Grima gets +10 res and has 1 less base res than Tiki. Tiki only gets +8 res, but essentially if Grima can run Dragon Wall, then so can Summer Tiki. Now, Tiki will need to get a distant counter A skill, and she does not have Iot Shield, so Grima still has her advantages. However, Tiki gets a crap ton of cooldown reduction, and when her special does go off, she deals extra burst damage on top of that. She could very easily use DC with Moonbow or Glimmer to fire back with instant specials, and if you don't mind sacrificing some damage reduction, you could even throw in Dragon's Wrath instead. I personally think Dragon Wall fits Tiki and Grima better though because it works on the player phase, and both of these guys have they're speedy enough to be threats against milling speed units. You can add on a res range C skill for more advantages, and if you don't want distant counter, then Tiki is fine with any stat booster. If you want to continue copying other units, then Tiki can also try to be like Brave Erica. She already has her insane extra damage on special trigger ability, but Tiki could also use Surge Sparrow for % HP healing as well. At least for general content, Surge Sparrow has become incredibly addicting for me. It can be so powerful, and if you spam specials like Tiki or Erica, then you can tank hits and heal right back up while still dealing tons of damage. Unfortunately, Tiki can't run flow guard, otherwise she could have actually just been like Brave Erica with no follow-up ability. I would say this hurts her pure player phase potential, but you can instead opt for a Kanto skill. Sadly, there is no near trace variant that reduces res just yet. Now, some other player phase skills include Desperation or Dive Bomb. For example, with 2 cooldown specials, Tiki can hit once to charge them and then hit a second time to proc them. Dive Bomb would be pretty hilarious for this strategy thanks to the extra cooldown reduction. If you prefer more enemy phase playstyles, then Tiki can opt for Dragon's Iron. You waste a bit of her speed potential, but you get part of no follow-up, which can really count when you're up against follow-up prevention skills. There is also Io's Shield for DC builds, but you're giving up the secret slot to run it. Honestly, against archers, maybe you can get away with Dragon Wall's damage reduction instead, at least for one-off fights. All in all, Summer the Young Tiki will probably be a pretty rare sight, but she will pose quite a threat if you let her proc her special. Unlike Brave Erica, Tiki does not have no guard, so you can try to slow her down there. However, she can also run distant counter and burst down a squishier unit. I think she has potential for Grima type builds, but without Io's Shield and not being colorless, Legendary Grima probably still the better unit for any situation. You can also spark Legendary Grima, while Summer Young Tiki is a rare seasonal 5-star unit. Regardless, I do think she got a pretty nice refine for those that like her. We're now starting to get to the nitty gritty refines, and you're going to want to pull up a magnifying glass for this one. Our 4th refine goes to Nailah, who is a blue beast infantry unit, and she was one of our first beast units in the game. Nailah got some huge buffs to her Wolf Queen Fang, including a buff to the beast transformation bonus that will be relevant for future beast units. This weapon exploits specials, and now the start of combat, if the foe has more than 75% HP or Nailah is within 3 spaces of an ally, she gets +5 attack and speed. If you meet both these conditions, she will inflict -5 attack and defense on the foe. Next, we have the Beast Transformation bonus for infantry beast units, and you'll notice the secondary effect got changed. When transformed, Nailah now deals +7 damage on special trigger, which used to be +10. However, she now receives no guard and no special charge. Overall, Wolf Queen Fang used to give attack and speed, but the condition has changed, and Nailah can now apply extra debuffs if you meet both of those conditions. When transformed, she is now even stronger, since I would say trading 3 damage for no guard and no special charge is easily worth it. If you saw the banner trailer for Ash, the new Book 6 freebie, who is also a beast infantry unit, she will have these same new transformation bonus as Nailah. I would say future beast and beast refines will probably both settle on a new stronger upgraded effect. Now on top of this, for the special or for the refine, Nailah is going to get Kanto remaining +1 when transformed. At the start of combat, if she has 125% HP, she's also going to gain +4 at all stats, and she will restore 7 HP on hit. This is quite the upgrade for Nailah, and she has a lot of potential uses now. In total, she's going to effectively get +14 attack and +9 to all other stats. She then gets +7 damage on special procs and has no guard plus no special charge and even healing on hit. Just a crazy buff all around. If you're not familiar with Nailah, she does have distant counter by default. The extra stats and attack debuffs will help her tank better since she isn't that tanky naturally, and the 7 HP on hit effect is really nice as well. Basically, if you want to use her as a DC unit, then the Refine is a great choice, and you can also take advantage of the no guard effect by running Steady Breath as your Sacred Seal. Nailah will always get 2 special charge, assuming she's transformed of course, and this can let her pop off an instant Luna or Bonfire counterattack since she has faster specials. Nailah did have no Seed Disrupt in her kit, so if you want to counter Dazzling Staff units, then you can keep that as well. Mystic Boost may be pretty nice for this since you can gut the damage of healers or just stop Fire Sweep skills. Now, the reason Nailah gets Kanto getting Kanto is a big deal is because she has a unique C skill called Glare. Glare inflicts AoE gravity after combat, and if you're familiar with Legendary Claw, then Nailah does the same thing, minus the stupid 80% damage reduction part. With faster specials, no guard, flashing blade, and no follow-up, Nailah can be a pretty nutty Gale Force unit. She can hit twice to activate Gale Force, but first she applies gravity, and she gets to use her Kanto action. Nailah can then either retreat further backwards, or you can hit another target, and you apply AoE gravity again, and that can mess up the enemy's formation on their turn. For example, if you push Nailah forward, maybe with Smite or a Dancer, she can attack and get 2 movement possibly from Kanto now, which lets her backpedal out of attack range since since Glare is applying gravity. There is also the ability to use things like Wings of Mercy on Nailah to fly in, attack, apply gravity, then Kanto away. You could even apply regular hit and run or wind sweep to these tactics, but those don't offer as much combative power. She can definitely be an interesting unit, although it's going to require some strategy for offensive moves. For some other skills, I think Special Spiral or Wrath could work well for Nailah. With Special Spiral, she could become like Ike and spam Aethers off cooldown with Steady Breath. With Wrath, you can get more damage on special triggers and maybe even charge up lower cooldown specials for player phase power if you can stall things out. Like with Tiki, Surge Sparrow is another option to get some extra sustain for Nailah, although she already has some built in from the Refine. It's still nice with no guard on hand. Speaking of which, Time's Pulse can let Nailah pre-charge 2 cooldown specials, and she can get double procs on initiations. Sadly, Beast Infantry cannot run dodge skills, and Nailah would have been so dirty with Close Call. She would have had Kanto, Hit and Run, and Dodge all together with Gravity. Oh, what could have been. Still, Wolf Queen Fang got one hell of an upgrade, and in general Nailah has a few ways to play since you don't have to run Glare at all. It's not as strong for DC subs, but you can open up fun tactics on the player phase with it. If this is what Nailah got, I can only imagine what Tabarn and Nailah are going to end up in the future. Last on the list for today is Walhart. This guy is a Heroic Grow Axe Cavalier, and while we got many new additions to this class type this year, Walhart is gonna make a strong case for himself at the very end. He did have a unique axe called the Berg, and it got some upgrades. It does grant +3 defense, and now at the start of the turn, if Walhart is within 4 spaces of a foe, he gets +6 to all stats for 1 turn. If he initiates combat or is not adjacent to any ally, he gets +4 to all stats during combat. Berg used to grant +4 to all stats, but it had a stricter activation condition. Now it always works in the player phase, and for the enemy phase, Walhart just needs to be alone. This simple stat boost is now accompanied by a whopping full set of +6 field buffs just for being in attack range of an enemy. With the refined portion, at the start of the turn, inflict -7 attack and defense on foes within 4 spaces for 1 turn, and inflict the flash status on them, which means they cannot counterattack back. At start of combat, if the foe has more than 75% HP, inflict -5 attack and defense during combat. Good lord. So altogether, Berg basically gives Walhart a tier 3 dual threaten, but it has 4 range. This is so close to a 4 range Surtur's Menace, but Walhart will inflict the flash status effect, and very important to note is that he hits every enemy within 4 spaces. Unlike the Menace Cisco's from this year, Berg debuffs everyone, not just the closest foes. This means Walhart's gonna thrive in PvE maps where there are tons of enemies all over the place, and he can actually just provide strong team support with those debuffs. He may be less effective if you need to move to the enemy first, but if they come to Walhart, then he's gonna have a field day. In total, he can have up to +10 to all stats and inflict -12 attack and defense on the foe. This is a very fitting refine for the Lone Conqueror. If you take a closer look at Berg's refine, it may seem a bit familiar. Walhart is supposed to be a far descendant of and Celica, and he saw what Brave got for his Draco Falchion refine and wanted a piece of the action. While Brave gets Wind Sweep to prevent counterattacks, Walhart just strikes fear into all these foes around him, and everyone doesn't want to fight back. He is not exactly a super fast unit, so if you don't want to invest in speed, then Walhart can just freely attack foes now without being KO'd on the enemy phase. Like with dual threatens, he also gets a huge stat advantage, so even if he only hits once, it's gonna hurt like hell. For this type of playstyle, low attack and defense and solo skills work very well. You can stack attack and defense and res. Since Berg applies debuffs, you could also run catch 4A skills, and Walhart can get the +9 full stat boost. One thing to keep in mind is that Walhart's resistance or his base res sucks. It's only 16 I believe. +10 res and -12 attack help a ton with this, but it's still his biggest weakness. Funnily enough, with the +10 speed boost from the buffs, speed builds on Walhart become much stronger. They also work incredibly well with the flash status and defense debuffs because the enemy can't fight back, and Walhart can focus on more speed to get natural doubles. You could run attack and speed solo and speed and defense near trace for Kanto if you want. Lows are fine as well, and Fatal Smoke is an innate debuff, although Panic or Post Smoke work too, since Walhart can freely apply them without getting hit back. If you run the speed build, then Flow Guard from Thor is really interesting. It gets Walhart partial follow up and offensive guard, which can prevent him from charging specials for free in case he does not get a kill. Flow Refresh could also work because it gives him some healing. In general, Walhart was a very early solo type unit, and nowadays with this refine, he fits right in with the most common cavalry skills. You can run double solo skills with either low or near trace, and generally you're gonna have a fun time. Walhart can invest into max speed, or maybe you can try to patch up his res, or just go full on into pure attack and defense stacking. Distant Counter and Quick Riposte are staple options for fun, and Heavy Blade can be nice too, although I think it would be better if Walhart can attack multiple times. Overall, you don't really have to do anything super fancy with Walhart, and he won't be unstoppable. He's less scary in situations where you cannot bait enemies to move first, but I think he's going to be a great unit for general PvE content. Just send him in and watch people fall or dink him for 0 damage. One aspect that I didn't really focus on is the depot support Berg provides. This is kind of similar to Little La Rochelle's staff, and from my experience with that weapon, it's an incredibly powerful effect. Although the range is shorter than La Rochelle, if enemies are moving to you, Berg can completely neutralize deadly enemy phase threats, since they can't hit back. You can also debuff every enemy within 4 spaces, so you can take advantage of multiple easy fights and pick enemies off with Walhart's team. I think they did a really good job with this refine, and it matches Walhart's commanding presence to rally his troops around him. He literally emits a menacing aura around himself, and that's perfect for a so-called conqueror. That'll wrap up this very fun new update of refines. I think everyone got something good, and there's a lot of divine due via the new Summoner's Duel game mode if you're short on resources. Next up, we're going to talk about the Book 6 banner, which is going to be out on the next reset. After that, it seems like Walhart is not the only Awakening Grand Hero banner unit to get the premium treatment by the devs. Let me know your thoughts on this batch of refines and share your own builds with everyone in the comments. See you in the next video.